everybody and welcome back to the channel. For today's video we're going to be taking a look at the Amazon exclusive Transformers Legacy Wreck and Rule Collection Prime Universe Bulkhead. Taking a very quick look here at the packaging, you can see we've got a fantastic image there of Bulkhead wielding his all-new weapon, which for those of you who are a fan of Transformers Prime may look vaguely familiar. You can see we've got him in this really awesome setting, and as we just spin our attention to the back, it does showcase some images of Bulkhead with the brand new paint deco, as well as once again utilizing that hammer. Now, if you collect all 5 of these Wreck and Rule figures, you can in fact actually build an almost hammer, very similar to what we saw with the Netflix waves, where you could essentially build an almost cardboard cutout of Teletran 1. This is exactly what this is here, and it is eventually going to look something along the lines of this, judging by the instructions. But as mentioned previously, you will need to collect all 5 in order to build this. So it's a pretty cool concept. It would have been even cooler had this actually been made out of plastic, and especially for the most part, this line does appear to be basically straight up repaints. I don't think that a plastic hammer would have cost them that much at all, especially considering that these are a little more pricier when in comparison to your regular mass retail product. But nevertheless, we'll crack Bulkhead here out of the packaging and of course compare him to the original Wave 1 Legacy counterpart. And here is the Wreck and Rule Transformers Prime Universe Bulkhead, and for the most part, it's actually a really nice looking figure. I personally was a huge fan of the original mold that we saw as part of the first wave of Legacy. I think it's by far one of the best figures that we've seen so far from this line, and this almost camo Age of Extinction Hound inspired deco really is doing something for me, especially when we get him transformed up into the armoured truck mode. Now, accessory wise, he comes with pretty much exactly the same as the original version, so we've got the mace weapon as well as the energon infused over the shoulder cannon, but the brand new accessory he comes with is this tiny hammer. Now, when I actually took this out of the packaging, I was expecting it to be a lot bigger and to have a much larger handle. However, this is almost dead on accurate to the weapon that Breakdown uses in Transformers Prime, and for those of you who have watched the show, you know that Breakdown is essentially Bulkhead's rival in that show. And for those of you who perhaps picked up the 10th anniversary pack for Transformers Prime, you guys know that whilst he did come with a hammer, it was an arms micron, so the actual sculpt work wasn't dead on accurate to what we're seeing on the show. So I kind of think as if though this is maybe either a hint that we're going to be seeing a Legacy version of Breakdown in the future, or maybe it's just an additional accessory for us to equip with this previous release. So if we just wriggle this arms micron here out to the side, we can then take our new Wreck and Rule hammer, and it does just slide on there very easily, and you can see, at least in my opinion, that looks so much nicer when in comparison to the arms micron hammer. Whether or not that was their intention is yet to be seen, but I do think that at least in terms of my personal collection, I'm more than likely going to be displaying this hammer here with my Breakdown. But as we bring Bulkhead back in for a closer look, you can see as far as the details are concerned, essentially it's exactly the same mold wise. It really is just some of the colours of which differ. So this time round, the over the shoulder cannon has been completely cast out of this really awesome dark smoky plastic for the energon infused weapon. The face sculpt is identical. I really do love the camo paint apps, however, that we've got going on here for the torso, and when we actually get him converted into the truck form, it is super cool. You can see here for the arms, the shade of green they've used is a lot more muted when in comparison to the original Legacy offering, and instead of blue plastic we now have a darker, almost smoky tint, which personally I think looks a little better. You can see we've got this really cool mace weapon which has been picked out in a vibrant silver, and then as we just work our way down here to the lower section, some smoked out thighs as well as some nice black detailings here for the base of the legs. But that is pretty much it in terms of paint apps. Of course, we do have the riot shield here on the back, which is still detachable, and you can see we've got some really nice camo details. Where this is concerned, we can attach it onto the front of the mace to create an almost battering ram for Bulkhead to use when in battle, which I thought was really awesome. And just very quickly showcasing how, of course, all of these weapons are removable. The mace attaches in the exact same way as on the original version, and of course you can still remove the over-the-shoulder cannon if you so desired, or take this piece here, flip out this tab, and peg it into the side of the arm and create a shield, which kind of looks as if though perhaps it's morphed out of Bulkhead's arm. Honestly, I thought this was a fantastic mold, so I'm definitely glad to see it get a re-release. I wasn't expecting it to be reissued as quickly as it has though. But with all that being said, pretty much wraps it up here in terms of Bulkhead for robot mode articulation, the same as the original version. So we do get a ball joint here, which can look up and down, tilt side to side, rotate the full 360, full rotation here at the shoulders, out to the sides, rotation here, at the bicep, hinge joints at the elbows, full wrist rotation, as well as a full waist rotation. The legs can kick forward to that far, back to that far, out to the sides, rotation at the thigh, 90-degree bend there at the knee, and then finally, of course, we do get the fantastic ankle rocker pivot. So with that being said, let's very quickly bring out the original Wave 1 counterpart for a comparison, and then we'll proceed into the transformation. And as you guys can see, unlike some of the other figures from the Wreck and Rule collection, I don't think Hasbro went too extravagant in regards to the color scheme with this guy. We've seen some really bold choices with some of the previous 4 entries, whereas this guy is more or less the same as his original counterpart, this time just with blacked out windows and of course a few additional camo highlights. And there are some things that I like more on the original Wave 1 version, but then overall I think, especially when we take the truck mode in consideration, I do think this Wreck and Rule version may in fact just be my favourite. But it would have been nice to have seen some of the metallic highlights that we've got here for the shoulders and knees carried over here to our Wreck and Rule version. And as far as the colour of green is concerned, it is a lot more vibrant on Wave 1 when in comparison here to our new Wreckers version. So I guess it's really just going to come down to personal preference. I do, however, much prefer the black for the plastic instead of the grey that we got on the original figure. Now, as far as the weapons are concerned, the over-the-shoulder cannons are completely different in terms of colour. So the first one was picked out in this really awesome blue, whereas this one is the same kind of smoky plastic that we see for the front windscreen. I think both of them look great. It really is just going to come down to personal preference. And as far as the maces are concerned, this one is a little more vibrant when in comparison to the offering that we saw first time round. And just to give you guys a perspective on how they look here from the back, once more we do have some of that really nice camo deco. And something else which I thought was a really nice attention to detail is instead of the Autobot insignia like seen here on the first one, we do in fact actually get the Wreckers insignia, something that we also saw with the Diaclone Universe Twin Twist. So that definitely is a nice touch. A really cool repaint, but should have they perhaps had released this as soon after, considering that this guy has literally only just come out? I'm not too sure, and in some regards I do kind of wish they went a little more extravagant and a little more bold in terms of some of the colour choices. Maybe even if they had just changed the head sculpt, I think it would have perhaps warranted actually double dipping on this mould, especially considering that this guy has literally only really and truly just been released. Now, turning to transformation, to begin with, you are just going to want to flare this section out to the side just to allow for some clearance. We can then detach the shoulders and essentially disengage this torso tab so that we can lift the entire chest unit up and then bring these sections here all of the way down, straighten that out, and then just combine them here in the middle. We'll then want to fold here at the elbows, take the head, tuck this down until it actually clicks into place, and then right here at the top is a secondary panel that will basically just fill in this void for vehicle mode. We can then take this entire truck canopy, fold this section up and over the arms. We can then take these wheels here, push these sections down, and they will actually split just like so. You'll then want to lift this panel up all of the way and then disengage this tab so that we can straighten all of that out. Now, as we flip here to the back, just fold up the feet so that the heel spurs do compress into the front part. Lift this section up, fold out the fuel tanks, hinge at the knee, snap that section into place, and as you guys may be able to see, there is a tiny tab that this slot will be fulfilled by. So just snap this section here into place. It can be a little difficult, at least here on my copy, but it will peg into place. And then, of course, repeat the exact same process here for this side. So collapse this down, snap this section here into place, and then just combine the two halves, hinge all of this up to the top, and you'll notice how we've got two tiny tabs here and here that will peg into these slots. So just hinge that in, and then we've also got some tabs that will peg into the sides here and here. So snap that side in, come to this side, and repeat the exact same process. Now, as far as the weapon storage is concerned, the instructions do essentially showcase the same form that we saw in the original version, that being taking the shoulder cannon and the mace and porting it here on the back. However, there is no placement for the hammer if you do that. The only way to actually store the hammer in the truck bed is to take this port, snap that there into place, then take the shoulder-mounted cannon, peg that in. But if you do decide to do this, then there is no storage here for the mace. So you really have to choose one over the other. It's either that you want to store the mace in the truck bed, or you want to store the hammer. There is no place for all three of them to coexist at one time, which is a little unfortunate. But considering all of the ports that we've got here on the side, I guess you could peg any of them onto the side of the vehicle mode. You'll then want to just collapse this section down and tab that there into place. Fold up the toes just like so. And here we have the Prime Universe Wreck and Rule Bulkhead fully transformed up into his awesome looking militaristic truck. And at least for me, this is definitely where the new camo deco shines. I think this looks fantastic. And to begin with, as I've mentioned before, I really do think this is a fantastic looking truck mode. So to get a much more militaristic, accurate looking paint deco, I really do think makes all of the difference. You can see as far as the almost front section of the truck is concerned, I think this looks awesome. So we've got some of the brown camo detailing, some of the black highlights. Overall, it just looks so nicely done. Even here at the top, I love the way how this black panel kind of actually does almost blend in to some of the camo details that we've got scattered throughout the sides. And you can see here, just overall, the paint apps on this guy have turned out really nicely. We've got this almost wrench section here at the front with the orange headlights. And then as we just spin our attention to the back, more of that camo detailing scattered throughout this almost canopy piece, even here at the top. And of course here on the sides. It maybe would have been cool to have seen some gunmetal for the hubcaps, but other than that, I think this looks fantastic. And the shade of almost camo green, army green that they've used for this front section, I think looks super impressive. Now for a very quick comparison, here bringing back out the original Wave 1 version, in my opinion, it's really and truly going to come down to personal preference, but at least for me, in truck mode, without a doubt, I think the Wreck and Rule version looks slightly better, but it is just going to be up to your own personal preference as to whether or not you prefer a much more vibrant, kind of more Transformers Prime accurate scheme that we saw with the Wave 1 version, or this almost Age of Extinction Hound-esque colour scheme that we've got here with our all-new Wreck and Rule collection. And so, some final thoughts for the Transformers Legacy Wreck and Rule collection Prime Universe Bulkhead. Overall, I think it's a pretty decent repaint. It's nowhere near as outrageous and as bold as some of their other figures in this particular lineup, which when you do take them all into account may make Bulkhead one of the weakest ones out of them all, but I still do think it's a really nice repaint. As far as the camo paint apps are concerned, I think it looks fantastic. In particular would be where that truck mode is concerned. Comparing it to the original Wave 1, I can definitely see some collectors being turned off by the more muted colour scheme. That Wave 1 version definitely did have a lot of vibrancy to it, especially where the transparent blue for the chest was concerned, and of course the really vibrant green. But I personally actually really love the way this looks. It may be slightly biased considering I'm a huge fan of kind of this colour scheme and the truck mode that Age of Extinction Hound had, and this looks very, very similar to that. But of course, just as a mold in general, I think it's really well done. In terms of additional accessories, the hammer is cool, but for Bulkhead, and considering this is a Wreckers subline, I would have much rather had seen something massive with a massive handle and of course a massive hammer. It is very dainty and kind of puny when in comparison to Bulkhead himself, and unless it is intended and designed for either a future breakdown or maybe even that 10th anniversary version, then I don't really think that's a big enough draw to in fact actually double dip on the mold, unless you love the colour scheme, as the colour scheme is pretty awesome. I think as far as that whole builder hammer is concerned, whilst it's a cool concept, much like the Teletran 1, I would have much rather have them in plastic components, as 9 times out of 10 I'm almost certain many collectors, myself included, are just going to toss them to the side, as cardboard never really holds up that well over time. And if I'm going to be honest with you, I do think it's going to be kind of a waste of time in actually assembling it. It doesn't look as if though it's going to look awesome when fully assembled, and of course considering that this line does primarily consist of repaints, I personally don't find that builder hammer to be that much of a draw to collect all 5. So I really do think that this is just going to be a line that collectors are going to dip their toes in just to cherry pick some of the best ones out there, and there are definitely some really cool ones. I just don't think that Bulkhead is the coolest out of all of the 5 that we've seen so far. But I'd love to know down in the comment section below what you guys think of this set. Is it one that you guys plan on adding to the collection when in comparison to that original Wave 1 offering, which is the better out of the 2? And like myself, do you absolutely love the way that the truck mode has turned out? I thank you all so much for watching, and until my next video, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.